The wind cut through the ice like a blade made of frozen razors. Daniel Cross pulled his torn thermal suit tighter around his chest, but it did little good. The suit had 3 large gashes from his encounter with an ice raptor last week, and the cold found those openings like water finds cracks in Stone Point 2 months. He had survived 2 months on Galactic 7, a frozen moon that the Colony Council had chosen as his dumping ground. They called it administrative relocation in the official documents, but everyone knew the truth. This was exile. This was a death sentence with paperwork. Daniel crouched behind a formation of blue ice, watching his breath form clouds in the air. His stomach growled. He had eaten the last of his rations 3 weeks ago. Since then, he survived on whatever he could hunt. The small rabbit-like creatures that burrowed in the snow. The occasional ice lizard. Once, he found a cache of frozen berries that were almost edible. His rifle rested across his knees. 17 bullets left. He counted them every morning, the way a man counts his remaining days. The irony was not lost on him. He had been security chief of the New Dawn colony ship. 300 souls depended on him to keep them safe. When pirates attacked the ship during their approach to this system, Daniel had refused his orders. The council wanted him to vent 3 cargo sections to space to stop the pirates from breaching those areas. But 60 civilians were sheltering in those sections. Families. Children. Daniel found another way. He suited up and went outside the hull with 2 volunteers. They welded emergency plates over the breach points while the pirates cut through the inner doors. It worked. They saved the civilians. But it took 20 minutes longer than the council's solution would have taken. And during those 20 minutes, the pirates stole medical supplies worth a fortune. The council held a trial. They said Daniel had disobeyed direct orders during a crisis. They said he put feelings above logic. They said his actions cost the colony resources they could not afford to lose. They gave him a survival pack, a rifle, and dropped him on Galactic 7 with a promise. If he survived 6 months, they would consider reinstating him. Daniel knew a lie when he heard one. No one survived 6 months on this moon. The cold alone would kill most people in weeks. Add the predators, the lack of food, the isolation, and 6 months became impossible. But he had made it to 2 months. That was something. That was more than they expected. He stood up and began walking. His traps were scattered across a 5-mile radius from his ice cave shelter. 3 of them had yielded nothing for days. The prey animals were getting scarce. Either the ice raptors were hunting them, or they had migrated to warmer regions. On Galactic 7, warmer meant anywhere with volcanic vents. Those were 30 miles away, through territory thick with predators. Daniel checked the first trap. Empty. The second trap. Empty. The third trap had been destroyed, torn apart by something with large claws. He knelt down and examined the marks in the ice. These were not ice raptor claws. These were bigger. Much bigger. His hand went to his rifle. 17 bullets. He had to make them count. He followed the claw marks. They led him away from his usual hunting grounds, deeper into a region he had avoided. The ice here formed strange towers and spires, like a frozen cathedral built by a mad architect. The wind howled through the formations, creating sounds that almost resembled voices. The tracks led to a massive crystalline ice structure. It rose 50 feet high, its surface reflecting light in rainbow patterns. Daniel approached carefully, rifle raised. There was an opening at the base. A cave entrance, but too perfectly circular to be natural. Something had carved this. Daniel hesitated. Every instinct told him to walk away. Whatever made those claw marks was big enough to tear him apart. But his curiosity was stronger than his fear. In 2 months of isolation, he had spoken to no one, seen nothing but ice and sky and the distant lights of the new dawn in orbit. Part of him wanted to see something new, even if that something killed him. He entered the cave. The temperature inside was warmer, much warmer. Daniel's breath stopped forming clouds. His frozen fingers began to tingle as feeling returned. The cave walls glowed with a soft blue light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. The passage sloped downward. Daniel followed it for 30 feet before it opened into a chamber. As he stopped breathing, .5 massive pods sat in the center of the chamber. each one the size of cargo container. They were made of something that looked like crystal and ice fused together, translucent enough to see shadows moving inside. The pods glowed with that same blue light, and they radiated heat like small suns. Daniel lowered his rifle and approached the nearest pod. Up close, he could see patterns in the crystal surface. They shifted and changed as he watched, forming shapes that almost looked like writing in a language he had never seen. Something moved inside the pod. A shadow shifted, pressed against the inner surface. Daniel could see scales, claws, the curve of what might have been a wing. His mind raced. The colony had surveyed this moon before exiling him here. They said it was barren, no intelligent life, no resources worth mining, nothing but ice and rock and cold. They were wrong. These were eggs, or cocoons. Something was growing inside them. Something big, something alive. Daniel reached out and placed his palm against the nearest pod. The crystal felt warm, almost hot. The shadow inside shifted again, as if responding to his touch. Then he heard the sound that IT started as a distant clicking, like metal scraping against stone. Then it grew into a chorus of screeches and howls. Daniel had heard that sound before. Every exile on Galactic 7 heard it in their nightmares. Ice raptors, he ran to the cave entrance and looked out. His blood went cold. 12 of them. A full hunting pack. They moved across the ice with deadly grace, their white scales making them almost invisible against the snow. Each one stood 6 feet tall on their hind legs, with curved claws designed for tearing and jaws strong enough to crack bone. They were heading straight for the cave. Daniel understood immediately. The heat. The pods were generating heat, and on a frozen moon like Galactic 7, heat meant life. Heat meant prey. The raptors had probably been circling this location for days, waiting for whatever was inside to emerge. He should run. He should slip out a back way, if one existed. Let the raptors have whatever was in those pods. It was not his problem. He had his own survival to worry about. But Daniel had never been good at walking away. He thought of the civilians on the New Dawn, the families he saved by refusing orders, the children who lived because he chose to protect them instead of following procedure. Whatever was in those pods could not defend itself, and the ice raptors would tear them apart. Daniel checked his rifle. 17 bullets. That he positioned himself at the cave entrance, using the narrow opening as a choke point. The raptors were 200 yards away now. They had caught his scent. Daniel Cross had been banished for protecting the innocent. He had been left here to die for choosing compassion over cold logic. Some habits were hard to break. He raised his rifle and waited for the pack to come. The first raptor died before it knew Daniel was there. He aimed for the head, squeezed the trigger, and watched the creature drop into the snow. The crack of gunfire echoed across the ice fields, and the rest of the pack scattered, taking cover behind ice formations. 16 bullets left. Daniel had fought ice raptors before. They were smart. They hunted in coordinated groups, used tactics, tested their prey for weaknesses. Lone raptors were dangerous. A pack of 12 was usually fatal. He pulled back from the cave entrance and grabbed chunks of loose ice, stacking them to create a barricade. The opening was only 8 feet wide, narrow enough that the raptors could only come at him 2 at a time if they charged. That was something. Not much, but something. Behind him, the pods pulsed with light. The blue glow had intensified, and Daniel swore he could feel warmth against his back, even from 30 feet away. Whatever was inside those pods, it knew danger was coming. A screech split the air. 3 raptors charged from the left, while 2 circled right. Classic flanking maneuver. Daniel shot the lead raptor in the left group, then pivoted and fired at the right group. Both shots found their targets. The creatures fell, but the survivors did not retreat. They pressed forward, more aggressive now. 13 bullets left. The remaining raptors regrouped behind a tall ice spire, about 50 yards out. Daniel could see their white forms moving in the shadows. They were talking to each other in their clicking, hissing language. Planning. He used the lull to check his supplies. Besides the rifle, he had a combat knife strapped to his thigh and a plasma cutter in his pack. The cutter was designed for cutting through metal and ice, not flesh, but it had a 30% charge left. It would burn for maybe 2 minutes before dying 0.2 minutes. 13 bullets. One knife. Against 8 ice raptors, Daniel laughed. It was a bitter sound that surprised him. 2 months ago, he would have calculated the odds and found them impossible. But 2 months of surviving on a frozen moon had changed his perspective. Impossible just meant difficult. Nothing more. The raptors attacked again. This time, all 8 came at once, rushing from multiple angles. They had given up on tactics and gone for overwhelming force. Daniel fired methodically. One shot, one kill. He dropped 3 raptors before they reached the cave entrance. The 4th one leaped over his barricade, claws extended. He rolled to the side and brought his knife up, catching the creature under its jaw. Hot blood sprayed across his face as the raptor thrashed and died. 0.4 raptors left. 9 bullets, but Daniel was wounded now. The leaping raptor had raked its claws across his shoulder as it died. 3 deep gashes cut through his thermal suit and into flesh. Blood ran hot down his arm, steaming in the cold air. The remaining raptors sensed victory. They paced outside the cave entrance, just beyond rifle range, watching him with intelligent eyes, waiting for blood loss to weaken him. Daniel tore a strip from his already ruined thermal suit and tied it around his shoulder. It was not much of a bandage, but it slowed the bleeding. He checked the wound. Deep, but not fatal. Not yet. Night was falling. On Glacius 7, night meant temperatures dropped another 40 degrees. Daniel could survive it in his shelter with his heating unit. Out here, exposed and bleeding, night was another enemy. The raptors knew this too. They settled down to wait, their white scales making them vanish against the darkening ice. They would let the cold do their work for them. Daniel retreated deeper into the cave, back to where the pods radiated their warmth. He sat with his back against the nearest pod and reloaded his rifle with shaking hands. The adrenaline was wearing off, and pain was replacing it. His shoulder burned like fire. He should have run. He should have left these pods to their fate and used the last of his strength to get back to his shelter. At least he would die somewhere familiar. But when he looked at the pods, at the shadows moving inside them, he felt something he had not felt in months. Purpose, whatever was in these pods, was alive. It was vulnerable, and it needed protection. That was enough. Hours passed. Daniel drifted in and out of consciousness. The pain in his shoulder had spread down his arm and across his chest. His fingers were numb, and not just from the cold. He was pretty sure the raptor's claws had carried bacteria or venom. His body was fighting an infection it was not equipped to handle. He woke suddenly to the sound of clicking. The raptors were moving. He could hear them at the cave entrance, working together to tear down his barricade. Smart, patient, deadly, Daniel forced himself to stand. His legs shook and black spots danced in his vision. The rifle felt like it weighed 100 pounds. He positioned himself between the pods and the cave entrance. The blue light from the pods cast a shadow on the wall, making him look larger than he was. A trick of light. It would not fool the raptors. The barricade fell. For white shapes slipped into the cave, moving low and fast. Their eyes reflected the blue light, turning them into demons from ancient stories. Daniel raised his rifle and fired. The first raptor dropped. The second one dodged, too fast. His next shot missed. The third shot caught the creature in the shoulder, slowing it but not stopping at. 0.6 bullets left. 3 raptors. 0.1 The raptors lunged. Daniel sidestepped, but his wounded shoulder made him slow. Claws raked across his chest, cutting through fabric and skin. He fell backward, hitting the ground hard. The raptor was on him instantly. Its jaws snapped inches from his face. Daniel jammed his rifle barrel into its mouth and pulled the trigger. The creature's head exploded, covering him in gore. 0.5 bullets. 2 raptors, but Daniel could not get up. His body had reached its limit. Blood loss, infection, cold, exhaustion. They all hit him at once. He tried to move, but his muscles would not respond. The 2 remaining raptors circled him. They knew he was finished. They made those clicking sounds again, talking to each other. Deciding who would feed first, that Daniel's hand found his knife. If they wanted him dead, he would make them work for it. 0.1 raptor approached, cautious but confident. It reached out with one clawed foot, testing whether he could still fight. Daniel tried to stab it, but his arm moved too slowly. The raptor dodged easily and hissed something that sounded like laughter. Then something changed. The blue light from the pods suddenly intensified, becoming almost blinding. The raptors screeched and backed away, confused and frightened by the sudden brightness. Daniel heard a sound he would remember for the rest of his very long life. A cracking sound, like ice breaking under pressure. Then another crack, and another. The pods were opening as he turned his head, using the last of his strength, and saw shapes emerging. Small shapes, no bigger than large dogs. They were covered in scales that looked like crystal, refracting the blue light into rainbow patterns. Wings folded against their backs. Tails swept behind them. Eyes that glowed with ancient intelligence, dragons. Or something very much like them. 0.5 hatchlings, newborn and uncertain, standing on shaking legs. They looked at Daniel. They looked at the raptors. And they understood. The eldest hatchling, its scales slightly darker than the others, stepped forward. It opened its mouth and made a sound. Not fire. Something else. A frequency so low Daniel felt it in his bones rather than heard it. The raptors froze. Then they ran, scrambling over each other in their panic to escape the cave. The hatchling approached Daniel. Its eyes met his, and he felt something impossible. A connection. A communication without words. Gratitude. Sadness. Understanding. Daniel had protected them while they were vulnerable. He had given everything to defend their nest. And now he was dying because of it. The hatchling opened its mouth again. This time, a silvery mist emerged. It smelled like starlight, like the space between stars, like eternity itself. The mist covered Daniel's wounds. It entered his blood, and his world dissolved into light and pain and transformation. The last thing he thought before consciousness left him was simple. Worth it. Time existed differently in the space between death and life. Daniel floated in silver light, feeling his body break apart and reform, cell by cell, molecule by molecule. Pain existed here, but it was distant, like a memory of pain rather than the thing itself that he saw images that were not his own. A civilization that spanned galaxies. Beings of crystal and scale who had existed for millions of years before humans discovered fire. They were called the Crystalline Sovereigns, and they were older than most stars that he saw their mating rituals, which happened once every 1,000 years. He saw how they chose nesting sites carefully, planets and moons where the energy of the world itself could nurture their young through the long months of development. He saw how the parents would die protecting their nests, giving everything so their hatchlings could survive. And he saw the poachers, ships that tracked the sovereigns across the galaxy, waiting for them to nest. The adult dragons were too powerful to capture alive, but their corpses were valuable. Their scales could be forged into armor. Their bones made weapons. Their blood sold for fortunes on black markets across civilized space. The hatchlings were worth even more. Alive, they could be trained, enslaved, used as weapons or status symbols by the wealthy and powerful. Daniel saw the attack on this nest. 2 adult sovereigns fighting against a poacher ship, dying in the black ice fields of Glacius. 7 while their young remained sealed in their cocoons, hidden in crystal caves. The parents bought their children time with their lives, but they could not buy them safety. The images faded. The silver light dimmed. Daniel fell back in his body like a stone dropped into deep water that he woke gasping. His hands flew to his chest, feeling for wounds. His fingers found smooth skin marked with strange scars that glowed faintly in the darkness. The scars were crystalline, like someone had drawn lines of living glass across his flesh. He sat up. His shoulder no longer hurt. His chest was healed. Even the small injuries he had accumulated over 2 months of survival, the frostbite on his fingers, the twisted ankle that never quite healed right, all of it was gone. Daniel stood on steady legs and looked around. He was still in the crystal cave, but everything looked different. Sharper, clearer. He could see in the darkness as if it were day. He could feel the heat from the cave walls, sense the movement of air currents, hear the wind outside with perfect clarity. What had they done to him? A soft sound made him turn. The 5 hatchlings were watching him. They had grown since he last saw them. They were now the size of ponies, their scales catching what little light existed in the cave and multiplying it. Each one was slightly different in color. The eldest was dark blue with silver edges. The others ranged from ice white to deep purple to crystal clear. The eldest approached him. Its eyes met his, and Daniel felt that connection again. This time it was stronger. Not just emotion, but actual thoughts. Images. Concepts. The hatchlings showed him what they had done. They had given him the gift of eternity. It was something sacred to their kind, a blessing that could only be given once in their long lives. It granted immortality. No afin, no sickness. Wounds that would kill others would heal in hours or days. The recipient would live until they chose to die, or until violence destroyed them beyond their body's ability to regenerate. The gift was precious. Most sovereigns saved it for their mates or their most honored allies. It was never given lightly. But these hatchlings had no mates. No allies. They had been alone in this hostile world, vulnerable and afraid. And a human they had never met chose to die defending them. They gave him everything they could give. All 5 hatchlings together, pouring their gifts into one dying human, transforming him into something new. Something between human and sovereign. A guardian who would never grow old, never abandon them, never fail them the way the galaxy had failed them. Daniel felt tears on his face. He did not deserve this. He was just a soldier who had made one good choice. He did not deserve immortality. The eldest hatchling touched its nose to his hand. The contact sent a wave of warmth through him. The creature's thoughts were clear. Deserve had nothing to do with it. He had protected them when he had every reason to walk away. He had fought for them until his body broke. He had placed himself between them and death. That was enough. That was everything. Daniel knelt down and placed his forehead against the hatchlings. He did not know the words to express what he felt, so he simply opened his mind and let the creature see. Gratitude, wonder, a promise that he would protect them for as long as he lived. And now that life had no end. The connection broke, and Daniel stood. He looked at the 5 young sovereigns, these magnificent creatures who had given him a gift beyond price. He needed names for them. The eldest, the dark blue one, he would call Frost. The ice white one would be Snow. The purple one, Storm. The crystal clear one, Glass. The one with silver and blue mixed together, Sky. The hatchlings accepted their names with pleasure. They had not yet developed the complex naming conventions of adult sovereigns. These simple human names would do for now. Daniel walked to the cave entrance. The sun was rising over Glacius 7, painting the ice fields in shades of orange and gold. The dead raptors lay scattered in the snow, already freezing solid. The blood had stopped steaming, but he looked down at his hands. The crystalline scars ran along his arms, across his chest, down his legs. They pulsed gently with blue light, keeping him warm despite the freezing wind. He was not human anymore. Not entirely. He was something else now, something the galaxy had never seen before. The hatchlings joined him at the cave entrance. They spread their wings, testing them. Not ready to fly yet, but soon. They would need time to grow, to learn, to become strong enough to survive in a hostile galaxy. And Daniel would give them that time. He would teach them everything he knew about survival, about fighting, about the dangers that existed beyond this frozen moon. He would prepare them for a universe that saw them as resources instead of people. But first, they needed food. The hatchlings were hungry. He could feel it through the connection they shared. They had used tremendous energy to hatch early, to save his life. They needed to eat. Daniel looked at the dead raptors. It seemed fitting. The creatures that had tried to kill them would now sustain them, but he spent the morning teaching the hatchlings to hunt, to feed, to use their natural weapons. They learned quickly. By afternoon, they had dragged the raptor corpses into the cave and fed until they were satisfied. Daniel ate as well, surprised to find he was ravenous. His transformed body required fuel, and it was not picky about the source. Raptor meat was tough and tasted like frozen leather, but his body processed it without complaint. Over the following days, Daniel and the hatchlings established a routine. He taught them the layout of the ice fields, showing them where dangers lurked and where resources could be found. They taught him their language, a complex system of sounds and mental images that conveyed far more than human speech ever could. He learned about their kind. The crystalline sovereigns had no homeworld. They were nomadic, traveling between galaxies, living on the energy of stars and the cold of deep space. They mated rarely and raised their young even more rarely. Each generation was precious. The hatchlings learned about humanity. Daniel told them stories of Earth, of the oceans and forests they would never see. He told them about human history, the wars and peace, the cruelty and kindness. He warned them about poachers, about those who would see them as things to own rather than beings to respect. Weeks passed. The hatchlings grew. They were now the size of horses, their wings strong enough for short flights. They hunted together, bringing down ice raptors and larger prey with coordinated attacks. Daniel fought beside them, his immortal body healing from wounds that would have killed him before that he was happy. For the first time since his exile, Daniel Cross was genuinely happy. He had found a family in these 5 creatures who were not even a species. He had found purpose in protecting them. But nothing good lasts forever. 3 months after the hatchlings emerged, a ship appeared in orbit. Daniel saw it during his evening patrol, a bright point of light moving across the stars that it was not the new dawn. The colony ship stayed in a stable orbit on the other side of Glacius 7. This ship was moving in a survey pattern, scanning the surface. Daniel's blood went cold. Through his enhanced senses, he could see details on the ship's hull. Equipment bays, sensor arrays, mining gear. The colony had found them. The landing craft touched down 2 miles from the crystal cave. Daniel watched from behind an ice ridge as 6 figures in cold weather gear emerged, followed by 2 people in lighter suits who had to be scientists. 8 humans total. He recognized their equipment. Standard colony survey gear, portable scanner, sample collection tools, and weapons. 4 of the 6 security personnel carried plasma rifles. Daniel's enhanced hearing picked up their conversation, even from this distance. Energy signature is definitely coming from that direction, one of the scientists said. She was pointing toward the cave. It's unlike anything in our database. Could be a new element or some kind of natural reactor. Whatever it is, the council wants it secured, one of the security officers replied. His voice was gruff and professional. We catalog it, we sample it, we report back. Standard procedure. Daniel felt Frost's presence in his mind. The eldest hatchling had sensed his distress and was asking what was wrong. Daniel sent back images of humans, of danger, of the need to hide. But it was too late. The survey team had better scanners than he thought. One of them was already pointing at the ice ridge where Daniel crouched. I'm picking up a large heat signature. Multiple signatures. Actually, something's alive over there. The security team raised their weapons. They approached carefully, using proper tactical spacing. These were trained people, not amateurs. Daniel had a choice. He could hide and hope they missed the cave. Or he could show himself and try to reason with them. He chose reason. He stood up slowly, hands visible and empty. The reaction was immediate. Weapons trained on him. Shouts of surprise. One of the security officers nearly fired before his companion stopped him. Hold fire. That's a person. They approached cautiously. Daniel remained still, letting them get a good look at him. He knew what they saw. A man in the torn remains of a thermal suit, covered in strange glowing scars, standing in sub-zero temperatures without shivering. Not exactly normal. One of the security officers stepped forward. She was a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and a professional demeanor. Her name tag, Redstone. Identify yourself, she demanded. Daniel Cross, former security chief of the New Dawn. Stone's eyes widened. Cross, but you were exiled 3 months ago. You should be dead. I got better. The security team exchanged glances. One of them was speaking into a radio, reporting back to the colony ship. The scientists were staring at Daniel with a kind of fascination usually reserved for new species. Stone lowered her weapon slightly. Daniel, we thought you were dead. The council assumed you had died weeks ago. How did you survive? Long story. What are you doing here? Survey mission. We detected an unusual energy signature from this location. Command wants us to investigate and secure any valuable resources. She paused, studying his glowing scars. What happened to you? Those marks. You should not be alive in this temperature. Daniel had to make a decision. These were his people. He had served with Stone before his exile. She was a good officer, fair and reasonable. Maybe he could convince them to leave. The energy signature you detected is not a resource. It's a nest. There are 5 juveniles of an intelligent species sheltering in that cave. They're vulnerable right now, and they need to be left alone. One of the scientists pushed forward. He was a thin man with glasses that kept fogging up in the cold. Intelligent species? On Glacius 7? That's impossible. Our initial survey showed no signs of complex life. Your initial survey was wrong. The species is called crystalline sovereigns. They're old, powerful, and their young need time to mature. If you go near that nest, you'll be putting yourself and them in danger. Stone studied him carefully. You're protecting them. That's why you survived. They help you somehow. Daniel nodded. They saved my life, and I owe them protection. Stone, please. Report back that the energy signature is unstable or dangerous. Tell the council to mark this area as off-limits. Just leave us alone. Before Stone could respond, another security officer stepped forward. Daniel recognized him too. Gordon Wells. They had never gotten along. Wells believed in following orders without question, and he had been vocal in supporting Daniel's exile. This is insane, Wells said. Cross, you're talking about hiding alien life from the colony. That's not your decision to make. If there are intelligent creatures here, the council needs to know. This could be a first contact situation. It could also be an exploitation situation, Daniel replied. There are poachers in this galaxy who hunt crystalline sovereigns for profit. If word gets out that juveniles are here, this moon will become a target. That sounds like colony security business, Wells said. He turned to Stone. We need to report this immediately. All of it. The alien life, Cross's survival, everything. Stone looked torn. She had always been by the book, but she was not cruel. She could see the desperation in Daniel's eyes. Before she could decide, the decision was made for them. Glass, the crystal-clear hatchling, appeared at the top of the ice ridge. The creature was curious and had ignored Daniel's instructions to stay hidden. It looked down at the humans with innocent fascination. The scientists gasped. The security team raised their weapons again. Wells started to squeeze his trigger. Don't, Daniel said. His voice was cold and hard. Glass is a child, a baby. If you shoot, you'll start a war you cannot win. Wells hesitated. Glass tilted its head, studying the humans. The creature was beautiful in the morning light, scales reflecting rainbows across the ice. Then the other 4 hatchlings appeared, curious about what Glass had found. 0.5 dragon-like creatures, each the size of a horse, staring down at 8 humans. The security team looked terrified. The scientists looked ecstatic. Stone looked like she was calculating odds and not liking the results. Frost sent a question to Daniel's mind. Were these humans dangerous? Should they be removed? Daniel sent back a firm negative. These are his people, confused and frightened, but not enemies. Not yet. He turned to Stone. You have a choice right now. You can report this and bring the full weight of the colony down on this location. The council will want to study them, capture them, maybe dissect them. Or you can trust me. Give us time. These juveniles need 1 more year to mature. After that, they can survive on their own, and I'll take them far from here. No one needs to know they existed. 1 year. Wells laughed. You expect us to lie to the council for a year? To hide this? I expect you to do the right thing. Stone was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the hatchlings, at Daniel, at her team. If we report this, what happens? Daniel met her eyes. The council is desperate for resources. They'll see 5 creatures who are worth a fortune on the black market. They'll convince themselves it's for the good of the colony. And when poachers inevitably show up, they'll tell themselves they had no choice. These juveniles will end up in cages or dead. Is that what you want? It's not our decision, Wells insisted. He reached for his radio. Daniel moved. His transformed body was faster than any normal human. He crossed 20 feet in less than a second and ripped the radio from Wells's hand. The other security officers raised their weapons, but Daniel was already backing away, holding the radio above his head. "I don't want to fight you," he said, "but I will if I have to. These creatures are under my protection." "You're threatening colony personnel," Wells said. "That's treason. I was exiled. I'm not colony personnel anymore. I'm just a man protecting his family." The standoff lasted 10 seconds. Then Frost made a decision. The eldest hatchling spread its wings and let out a sound. Not the low frequency that had scared the ice raptors. This was different. A clear, ringing note that carried across the ice fields like music. The other hatchlings joined in. 5 voices in harmony, creating something beautiful and terrifying. The sound resonated in Daniel's bones, in his crystalline scars, in the ice itself. The humans stood frozen, caught by something primal. This was not just sound. This was power. This was a reminder that the crystalline sovereigns had ruled the galaxy when humanity was still learning to make fire. When the song ended, the hatchlings folded their wings and simply looked at the humans. The message was clear. We are not prey. We are not resources. We are people, and we will be treated with respect. Stone lowered her weapon. She looked at Daniel with something like understanding. "How long have they been here?" "Their parents hid them 3 months before I was exiled. The parents died fighting poachers. I found the juveniles by accident, and they saved you. They gave me a gift I didn't deserve. Now I'm giving them what they need. Time and protection." Stone made her decision. She turned to her team. "We report the energy signature as unstable geological activity. Too dangerous to investigate further. We mark this area as off-limits and return to the ship." Wells looked furious. "That's falsifying a report. That's keeping this colony safe," Stone replied. "If we report intelligent life, we start a process we can't control. Better to walk away. The Council will send others. Then I'll convince them not to. I have some pull with the civilian leadership." She looked at Daniel. 1 year. After that, you take them and disappear." "Agreed." Agreed. But even as Daniel said it, he knew the truth. The colony had found them once. They would find them again. Stone kept her word for 3 days. Then everything went wrong. Daniel was teaching the hatchlings advanced hunting techniques when he felt it. A vibration in the ice, subtle but wrong. He looked up and saw 6 ships dropping from orbit. Not survey craft. Military transports. The colony had sent their armed forces. Frost sensed his panic and sent a questioning thought. Daniel responded with images of danger, of humans coming in force, of the need to prepare for a fight. The hatchlings had grown stronger in the past few days. Their scales were harder, their wings more powerful. They could fly for hours now, and their breath weapons had developed. Not fire, but focused beams of crystalline energy that could cut through ice and metal like butter. But they were still juveniles, still learning, and Daniel knew what was coming. The colony had decided the risk was worth the reward. The ships landed in a circle around the crystal cave. 30 soldiers in powered armor emerged, along with combat drones and heavy weapons. This was not a survey team. This was an invasion force that a loudspeaker crackled to life. "Daniel Cross, this is Commander Phillips of Colony Security. You're ordered to surrender yourself and the alien creatures immediately. Resistance will be met with lethal force." Daniel stepped out of the cave, hands visible. The hatchling stayed behind him, growling softly. He could feel their anger through the connection they shared. They did not understand why other humans were doing this. Daniel had taught them that humans could be kind, could be protective. This was teaching them a different lesson. Phillips approached, flanked by 2 soldiers. He was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes. Daniel had never liked him. Phillips believed in strength and order above all else. Compassion was weakness in his worldview. "Stand down, Cross. You can't win this." "I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to protect 5 juveniles who have done nothing wrong. They're valuable resources. The Council has decided they need to be studied, cataloged, and secured for the good of the colony." Secured. That's a nice word for captured. Phillips shrugged. "We're not going to hurt them. They'll be treated well. But they belong to humanity now. We found them first. Their parents were here first, by about 3 months. And those parents were killed by poachers who thought exactly like you do. I don't care about history. I care about following orders. Last chance, cross. Step aside or we put you down. Daniel felt Frost's presence in his mind. The eldest hatchling was asking if they should fight. Daniel sent back uncertainty. He did not want to hurt these people. They were colonists he had sworn to protect. But they were threatening his family. The decision was made for him. One of the soldiers, nervous and trigger-happy, fired a warning shot. The plasma bolt struck the ice near Glass's feet. The crystal-clear hatchling jumped back, startled and frightened. That was enough. Storm, the purple hatchling with the quickest temper, opened its mouth and returned fire. A beam of crystalline energy lanced out, cutting through the soldier's plasma rifle and melting it into slag. The soldier dropped the ruined weapon and stumbled backward. Hostile action, Phillips barked into his radio. All units engage. Lethal force authorized. The battle began. Daniel moved faster than the soldiers expected. His immortal body had been healing and improving for months now. He was stronger, quicker, more resilient than any normal human. He disarmed the first two soldiers before they could fire, tossing their weapons into the snow. The hatchlings took to the air. Their wings beat powerfully, carrying them up and away from the ground-based weapons. From above, they used their breath weapons with precision, targeting equipment rather than people. Drones fell from the sky, their systems fried. Heavy weapons sparked and died, but the colony forces adapted. They spread out, used the ice formations for cover, coordinated their fire. Plasma bolts filled the air. One caught snow across the wing, burning through scales. The ice-white hatchling screamed in pain and fell, hitting the ground hard. Daniel felt Snow's pain, as if it were his own. He ran toward the downed hatchling, placing himself between Snow and the advancing soldiers. A plasma bolt hit him in the chest, then another in the shoulder. The pain was incredible, but his body absorbed it, began healing even as he moved. He reached Snow and dragged the hatchling behind cover. The wound was bad, but not fatal. The scales would regrow, but Snow would not be able to fly for days. Frost landed beside them, furious. The eldest hatchling wanted to kill the soldiers, to burn them all for hurting Snow. Daniel felt the rage pouring through their mental connection. It would be so easy to let Frost act. The crystalline sovereigns were powerful. Even as juveniles, they could slaughter these soldiers, but Daniel held Frost back. These were colonists, desperate people trying to survive in a hostile galaxy. Misguided, yes. Cruel, perhaps, but not evil. Not beyond redemption. He sent images to Frost, showed the hatchling what would happen if they killed colony personnel. More ships would come, bigger weapons. The full might of humanity turned against 5 juveniles who could not yet survive deep space. It would be genocide. Frost understood, but the hatchling did not like it. They needed another solution. Daniel had an idea. It was risky, possibly stupid, but it was all he had. He stood up and walked into the open, hands raised. Phillips, I have an offer. The firing stopped. Phillips stepped out from cover, weapon trained on Daniel. What kind of offer? You want the juvenile secured. I understand that. You're afraid of what they might do, afraid they'll be a threat to the colony. So take me instead. What? I'm the real prize here. Look at me. I survived 3 months on a death world. I heal from wounds that should kill me. I don't age, don't get sick. The juveniles gave me something valuable, something your scientists would love to study. Take me back to the colony. Do your tests. Learn what you can. But leave the juveniles alone. Phillips was listening. Daniel could see the calculation in his eyes. A human test subject would be easier to contain than 5 dragon-like creatures. Less politically complicated, too. The council could claim they were studying one of their own people rather than imprisoning alien juveniles. If we take you, the creatures might attack to free you. They won't. I'll order them not to. We have a connection. They'll listen. How do I know you won't escape? Because I'll give you my word. 1 year. You study me, run your tests, learn what you can. After 1 year, you let me go, and the juveniles and I leave this system forever. You get your research. We get our freedom. Everyone wins. Phillips lowered his weapon slightly. He was considering it. Daniel could see him weighing options, calculating benefits and risks. Then Stone's voice crackled over the radio. "Commander, this is Stone. I'm on approach with the Civilian Council representative. Do not proceed until we arrive." Phillips frowned. "Stone, you don't have authority here. This is a military operation, and you're about to make a political disaster. Stand down until we arrive." 5 minutes later, a small transport landed. Stone emerged, followed by an older woman Daniel recognized. Helen Ward, one of the council members who had voted to exile him. She looked older than Daniel remembered, more tired. Ward walked directly to Phillips. "Commander, I'm invoking civilian authority. Stand your forces down. Counselor, we have the situation contained. We can secure the assets without further conflict. Those assets are intelligent beings. I've been reviewing the reports Stone filed, including her observations of their behavior and communication. This is a first contact situation, not a resource extraction." Phillips looked frustrated. "The council voted to secure them. Part of the council voted. I did not. And I have enough support among the civilian population to make this messy for you, if you proceed." Ward turned to Daniel. "I owe you a conversation, at minimum." Daniel approached cautiously. Ward studied his glowing scars, his confident stance despite being surrounded by armed soldiers. "You survived. Against all odds, you survived. I had help from them." Ward looked at the hatchlings. Frost had moved to stand beside Daniel, protective and wary. "They're beautiful and intelligent." Stone's report was very clear on that point. "They're children, orphans. Their parents were killed by poachers." Ward nodded slowly. "I made a mistake exiling you. I let fear and resource scarcity drive my decisions. I convinced myself we couldn't afford your compassion. I was wrong. So help me now. Stop this. Let us go." "I can't let you go. Not yet. Too many people know about this situation. If you disappear, Phillips and his supporters will use it against me politically. They'll say I let valuable resources escape." Ward paused. "I can offer something else. Sanctuary." "What kind of sanctuary?" "The colony will declare Glacius 7 a protected zone. No mining, no exploitation, no military operations without civilian approval. The juveniles can remain here until they mature. In exchange, you agree to occasional monitoring visits. We document their growth, their development. We prove to the galaxy that humans can coexist with other intelligent species peacefully." Daniel felt Frost's question in his mind. The hatchling was asking if they could trust this human. Daniel was not sure, but it was better than the alternative. "One condition. I stay with them. No separation." Ward agreed. "You stay together. This moon becomes your home for as long as you need it." Phillips started to object, but Ward cut him off with a look. The commander was outranked, and he knew it. The soldiers withdrew. The weapons powered down. And slowly, carefully, a treaty was born between human and sovereign. 20 years changed everything and nothing. Daniel stood at the edge of the crystal cave that had become famous across the galaxy. The structure was larger now, expanded and reinforced by the crystalline sovereigns as they matured. Frost and the others had carved chambers deep into the ice, creating a palace of frozen beauty that attracted researchers and artists from 100 worlds. Glacius 7 was no longer a forgotten moon. It was a sanctuary, a symbol, proof that humanity could choose cooperation over exploitation when given the chance. Daniel himself had become something of a legend. The Immortal Guardian, they called him. The human who died for a dragon nest and was reborn as something more. Researchers came to study him, but Ward had kept her promise. He was not a prisoner or a specimen. He was a person who chose to share his knowledge. His body had not aged a day since the hatchlings gave him their gift. His face remained the same, though his eyes had changed. They held depths now, the weight of years and experiences that should have required a lifetime to accumulate. The crystalline scars had spread across more of his skin, creating patterns that glowed softly in darkness. He was beautiful in an inhuman way. Frost landed beside him, massive wings creating gusts of wind. The eldest sovereign was now the size of a shuttlecraft, powerful enough to travel between stars without a ship. The dark blue scales had deepened to midnight, edges trimmed with silver that caught starlight. Frost was magnificent and terrifying and wise beyond measure. Thinking about the past again, Frost said. The sovereign's voice resonated directly in Daniel's mind, but it could also speak human languages now. It chose mental communication because it was more precise. Always, Daniel replied. Hard not to when you live this long without aging. Do you regret it? The gift we gave you? Daniel considered the question. 20 years of watching colonists age while he remained unchanged. 20 years of saying goodbye to friends who grew old and died. Stone had passed away 5 years ago, her body finally failing after decades of service. Ward had followed 2 years later. Even Phillips, who eventually became an ally, was gone now. The colony had changed too. New Dawn's population had grown from 300 to over 10,000. They had built cities on 3 moons and established mining operations throughout the system. They were prosperous now, partly because of the technologies the sovereigns had shared. Clean energy systems based on crystalline matrices. Medical advances derived from studying Daniel's healing abilities, though never replicating the immortality itself. Agricultural techniques adapted from sovereign knowledge of biological systems. Humanity and the crystalline sovereigns had proven that cooperation was possible. Other species had taken notice. Galactic 7 had become a meeting place, neutral ground where different civilizations could interact without the usual power dynamics. No regrets, Daniel finally said. This life has meaning. Purpose. That's more than most people get. Frost made a sound that might have been laughter. You're thinking about the new hatchlings. Daniel nodded. In the cave behind them, 3 new cocoons rested in a chamber of their own. Storm had mated with a sovereign from a distant galaxy, and these were their offspring. The cycle continued, life persisting despite the dangers of the universe. They'll need protection while they mature, Daniel said. Just like you did, and you'll provide it, just like you did for us. Frost paused. But Daniel, you don't have to stay. We're adults now. We could defend ourselves and our young. You fulfilled your oath 1,000 times over. You're free to leave, to explore, to find your own path. Daniel had thought about it. The galaxy was vast, and he was immortal. He could see things no other human had witnessed. He could travel for centuries without fear of aging or death. It was tempting. But when he looked at those 3 cocoons, he felt the same pull he had felt 20 years ago. Something vulnerable. Something that needed protection. Something worth dying for, even if death was now mostly theoretical for him. I think I'll stay a while longer, he said. Frost accepted this with grace. The sovereign had learned humans well over 2 decades. They were stubborn creatures who formed bonds that defied logic. Daniel had imprinted on the sovereigns the way the sovereigns had imprinted on him. They were family now in all the ways that mattered. A ship descended from orbit. Daniel recognized it as one of the colony's diplomatic vessels, probably bringing another group of researchers or ambassadors from some distant world. Galactic 7 received dozens of visitors every week now. But this ship was different. It landed with military precision, and the person who emerged wore the uniform of New Dawn security forces. A young woman, maybe 25, with determined eyes and confident bearing. She approached Daniel with the kind of respect usually reserved for historical figures, which he supposed he was. Guardian Cross? I am Lieutenant Anne Phillips. My grandfather served with you. Daniel recognized the family resemblance. She had Gordon's jaw and eyes, though her expression was softer. Your grandfather was a good man. I was sorry to hear about his passing. He spoke of you often, said you taught him that following orders and doing what's right aren't always the same thing. And paused. I'm here with a request from the council. We need your help. What kind of help? There's been an incident in the outer colonies. A group of poachers attacked a sovereign nesting site on a moon called Titan's Rest. They killed the parents and stole 5 cocoons. We've tracked them to a black market station in neutral space. The council wants to mount a rescue operation, but we need someone who understands sovereigns. Someone who can communicate with the stolen young if we recover them. Daniel felt cold rage settle in his chest. After 20 years of building bridges and proving that cooperation was possible, there were still those who saw intelligent beings as commodities. When do we leave? And smiled. Immediately, if you're willing. We have a fast ship and a good team. But Guardian, this could be dangerous. These poachers are well-armed and desperate. Daniel touched the crystalline scars on his arm. They pulsed with blue light. I'm hard to kill. Let's go save some children. Frost made a rumbling sound. I'm coming with you. Sky and Glass as well. This concerns our kind. The ship might not fit all of you, and said carefully. We don't need a ship. We can fly faster than your vessel and breathe vacuum. We'll meet you there. And looked between Daniel and Frost with wonder. After 20 years, humanity still wasn't completely comfortable with how powerful the sovereigns had become. That was probably healthy. Respect and caution went hand in hand. The mission took 3 days. Daniel and 3 adult sovereigns traveled through the void of space, crossing distances that should have required weeks in a ship. They arrived at the Black Market Station just as Anne's team was initiating their raid. The fighting was brutal but brief. The poachers were skilled, but they weren't prepared for immortal guardians backed by 3 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Daniel moved through the station like a force of nature, disarming guards and rescuing hostages. His body absorbed damage and healed almost instantly. After 20 years, he had learned to fight like the sovereigns taught him, using speed and precision over brute force. They found the stolen cocoons in a cargo hold, being prepared for auction. The cocoons were damaged, their surfaces cracked and dark. The young sovereigns inside were alive but suffering. Frost and the others began emergency care, using their own energy to stabilize the cocoons. It was a delicate process that would take hours. Daniel stood guard, ensuring no one interrupted. One of the poachers, wounded but conscious, looked at Daniel with hatred. You're protecting monsters. They're animals. Valuable animals. Daniel knelt beside the man. His eyes glowed with blue light. They're people, older and wiser than humanity can comprehend. And the only monster I see here is someone who steals children for profit. The poacher looked away, unable to meet Daniel's gaze. The cocoon survived. Anne's team transported them back to Galactic 7, where they were placed in the care of the sovereign community. The young ones would hatch in time, and they would be safe. Protected. Loved. Daniel returned to his crystal cave and resumed his vigil over Storm's 3 cocoons. They would hatch soon. Maybe in days, maybe in weeks. When they did, he would be there. He would protect them through their vulnerable months. He would teach them about the galaxy, about humanity, about the constant balance between danger and hope. Years would pass. Decades. Perhaps centuries. Daniel would remain, unchanging and watchful. The immortal guardian of Galactic 7, the bridge between species, the human who proved that compassion was not weakness, but the greatest strength any being could possess. People would age and die around him. Civilizations would rise and fall. But Daniel Cross would endure, protecting those who could not protect themselves, because that was who he had always been. The exile who became a legend. The soldier who learned that family was not defined by blood or species, but by choice and sacrifice. And in the cold darkness of Galactic 7, in a cave made of crystal and ice, dragons dreamed a human who died for them and was given eternity in return. They dreamed of the warmth he had shown them when they were helpless. And they knew that as long as Daniel Cross lived, no sovereign young would ever face the darkness alone. The story of the banished warriors spread across the galaxy, carried by traders and diplomats, artists and scholars. It became a reminder that humanity's place in the cosmos was not defined by weapons or territory, but by the choices individuals made in moments of crisis. Would they exploit or protect? Would they see others as resources or as people? Daniel Cross had made his choice 20 years ago on a frozen moon. And that choice had changed the galaxy forever. Not through conquest or technology, but through simple compassion extended to creatures who were different, strange, and in desperate need. In the end, that was the greatest gift humanity could offer the universe. Not immortality or power, but the willingness to die for those who could not defend themselves. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe returned that gift in ways beyond measure. Daniel stood at the cave entrance, watching 3 stars move across the sky. They were not stars, but sovereigns, flying between worlds, free and powerful and safe because one human had chosen to protect them when no one else would. He smiled. His work was not finished. It would never be finished. There would always be those who needed protection, those who were vulnerable, those who deserved a chance to live and grow and become what they were meant to be. And Daniel Cross, the immortal guardian, would be there for them, for as long as forever lasted. That was enough. That was everything.